Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this story that on CNN, Don Lemon, he just got owned so bad talking about reparations, there's lots to talk about the royal family with Elizabeth II's passing, and so they're spending a lot of money, obviously, on like the funeral and other stuff like that, so Don Lemon asked about reparations, and he just got so totally owned. My sister sent it to me not too long ago. I'm so glad it made the cut, because it was a laugh out loud moment for me when I show this. I think you guys will laugh out loud, but it was amazing. It's worth showing. It's worth talking about. He just got owned so bad. In much darker news, though, there is a teenager in North Dakota who was mowed down and killed by a 41-year-old man over politics. And I'm not sure the reason specifically that they got into it or why he came after this kid. He just said he's a Republican extremist, and he mowed him down with his car and killed this kid. So we are starting to get to a really bad spot if people are going to take actions like that. The sort of rhetoric that is popping up from the president and other people really need to tone that stuff down, especially as the commander-in-chief who campaigned on, hey, we're going to unify the country. I knew he was lying when he said it, but there's some really deranged people who hook themselves into politics. That's, I don't know, how a way to feel like they matter and can affect the world, or people worship something. Some people they go to church, and some people they get into politics, and they're so centered on that sort of thing. And everyone's responsible for the actions that they take, but we're also responsible for the things that we say, and some leadership needs to tone down some stuff. We talked last week about some really hot rhetoric from some people on the left. You had Hirono, who's just like literally said abortion was a call to arms, and she said literally a call to arms. Now, I think she's just a moron. But the word literally, she's literally not figuratively. So if it's a literal call to arms, that would mean you literally go pick up guns and fight. So, and you had Tim Ryan in Ohio talking about we need to kill and confront the MAGA movement. So people just need to talk about politics and policies and go after those ideas. Talk about that stuff. Critical thinking. Find out if what you have to say has merit or not. Does the data support it? Is it something that we can implement that would be good overall for the nation? Like, break down that stuff. Like, let's stop assuming so much malice between each other. Let's talk ideas, but we can't even do that because they're like, this person's an extremist, this person's homophobic, this person's like, let's talk about ideas, but we don't want to do that anymore as a nation, and we're just going to keep devolving and getting worse and worse and worse. We can't just have honest conversations amongst ourselves anymore. So that's a pretty dark story. Also, Joe Biden said a comment today that's just like, might as well be full on open border nonsense. We'll show the video and we'll talk about it today. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different content that we have on the website, different articles, different videos that we have. We'll be dropping some more stuff soon. I wrote an article last week about my crazy governor, and some people in charge of my state are trying to pass some pretty radical stuff. There was so many things that kind of happened over this weekend, but I was busy this weekend with my family. My baby cousin got married. Him and his beautiful wife on Sunday went down to Indiana, and then we drove to Kentucky to go to the Ark, which was amazing. Which I have more pictures that I like to show you guys because people are like, tell me how it is. But I just didn't upload them yet, so maybe go into more of it tomorrow. But it was really, really cool. Obviously, just a massive um stature, but the level of detail that they had in there and with the different exhibits was really, really cool. And I did not have time to go to the Creation Museum, but there was a lot of information within just the ark itself. It would have been, I guess, worth it to go to the Creation Museum too, but just didn't have the time. I didn't have all the time to see all that I wanted to do even there. So it's definitely worth people bringing their members and church folks and other folks too. So it was really cool. I'll probably show you guys some more pictures and talk about it more tomorrow. I took some videos, but my phone ended up dying while I was there. So I was taking pictures of so many things. There's so much information. It was a lot of reading within the different exhibits, and so I was just like, I'll read some of this later, or I want to save this information, etc. So I took a lot of pictures, and then my phone died. Probably didn't help that me and my sisters did a Pokemon raid. While we were there too. There's a lot of spots. We're at the Pokemon Go. I haven't played in a while, but my sister remembered when she was there before. So it just became a thing. We did not have enough people though, so we wasted our time. But anyway, go to the website, check out different stuff that we have there. We have different merchandise you guys can check out, like the Club XX lifetime membership, XX woman, other kind of stuff like that. The You Are Not That Special t-shirt. It's still pumpkin spice season, so you guys can get those cute little mugs. And also got the You Are Not That Special in mugs. And we got other stuff like the Constitution's Glorious Liberty document. Check out the different stuff on the site. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Everything that you do does help. It costs to stream. It costs to run my site. It costs the software I use. It costs to travel, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to help with that sort of overhead, I very much appreciate it. On blacktnews.com/donate. If you can't, I thank you guys for watching live, for sharing, for telling other people to watch Black Tea News. Very much appreciate all that you guys do. Also want to thank Bride and Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If there's something that you guys don't like and you want to complain to somebody, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices. I've never had to pay anything to be in the studio. It's just they want to help spread, it's not the good news. I do talk about the good news sometimes, but just conservative message. And what's important to me, important to them, is to encourage other people to have meaningful conversations with each other. There's was it 62% of Americans are too afraid to voice their real opinions. I'm not one of those people. And I'm glad that other people have reached out and said, hey, since listening to Black Tea News, I'm more encouraged to go ahead and have those conversations. And it's important that we do. Like, politicians will raise a bunch of money and flood the airwaves. And sometimes there's candidates that we like that just can't match that kind of money. Like right now in Michigan, our governor, through a loophole, basically raised an ungodly amount of money. But we need people on the ground who's going to talk to the neighbors, talk to their friends, and spread that way. Money tries to make up the difference from that people relationship, that people connection. So we need to be willing to have those conversations with people. Just remind each other that we are human. We may have different opinions, but we're not people who lack empathy. And there's people on the other side who literally think that people on the right have no empathy. It's really bizarre. And I've talked about that at length before, but one of the most important things to me is that people have the courage to just go ahead and really speak common sense, to speak what they believe, and to engage and continue critically thinking. So that's what I love to do here, and I thank Bright Michigan PAC for sharing that vision. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. You guys know that I like to start with something funny. I don't have a meme. This Don Lemon thing is funny enough. This Don Lemon thing is funny enough. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play it. It sets itself up.
Well, this is coming when, there's all of this wealth and you hear about it comes as England is facing rising costs of living, a living crisis, austerity budget cuts, and so on. And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say, who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages? Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. She did such a good job. So many good points. Especially, it's timely because a lot of people have been talking about a Woman King film, and so people have been pointing out, and there is a big trend on Twitter on Friday night, or maybe it was Saturday, but they were saying boycott the Woman King, because you had these white women who got together and wrote a script and did like some revisionist history. And so in the film, they do address that the tribe to whom he sold slaves, but they made it seem like, oh, we want to get out of the business and just focus on palm oil or something. That's not what happened. Like the British had, well, I don't know if it was British, but the Europeans had to make them stop. They did like a blockade, and they had to be forced to stop. They weren't just like, you know what, let's decide to be abolitionists and we gotta fight for a better tomorrow so we can stop doing these bad things. No, they were made to do it. So I've said this, and I guess other people, just pointing out, like, it's kind of like, how would people react if there was a movie about the Confederacy and they were just pretending like, you know what, we're the ones who just decided to end the slavery. Like, maybe, no, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't have abolitionists or whatever who were there trying to do some stuff, but no, but you can't just like, I don't mind when history is tweaked a bit for a good story. I'm the kind of person who will go and research, even like I'm watching a film that's like a period piece, and I'm like researching while I'm watching it. And then I go from like one, article to the next, just because I find it so fascinating. Everybody's not like that, but this is a huge difference, I think. And there's films that get things like totally wrong and change a lot, but that, I don't know, that seems like a pretty big detail. So people didn't really appreciate it. And I said what I don't really understand is I think it probably would have still been a very interesting movie if they just were honest about it. And I didn't see it. I'm not like a huge movie buff, run out and go watch it, because I don't know, I just rather spend my time writing. So So I don't run out to the movies. I've only seen 2 movies in the theater this whole year. I've seen some stuff like at home, like I watched the Elvis movie with my mom wanted us to watch it, and it was really good. But I haven't run to the movies to go see much. I'm not gonna tell you what 2 movies I watched because I'm gonna pose a question on Facebook, and I'm gonna see if you can figure out which 2 movies they were. But I'm not gonna run out to see this. I also don't appreciate the Viola Davis being like, "Hey, you gotta watch this, or you don't support women," or something along those lines. I don't like being emotionally blackmailed like that, so that makes me want to see it less. Um, but anyway, people are talking about the Africans in the transatlantic slave trade and the role that they played. So it is just very timely that Don Lemon tried to get her with the reparations. And then she's like, well, they're the ones who started it. We got to go back to the beginning. Go ahead and get your reparations from there, from the people who actually sold the folks, and pay reparations to these people, these descendants who tried to stop it. She mentioned Wilberforce. Wilberforce. Oh my! If you don't know anything about Wilberforce, look him up. There's a great movie called Amazing Grace. Um, that's just really fantastic to learn about how they did abolish slavery. Um, but she was great. Actually, I did write an article on blacktnews.com about reparations. So many people still talk about it. It's just not feasible. Like, who would pay, and people are like, well, in the United States, they just be like, I know people suggested different things, but the government doesn't just make money; they get it from everyone else, and they just redistribute stuff. So technically, it's just about everyone paying into it, and then paying out other people and redistributing it. And maybe I would get, maybe my taxpayer dollars would pay for it. Maybe I would get more ultimately. But is that fair for people who weren't here at that time, whose ancestors weren't here at that time? People who immigrated afterwards, people who actually fought against slavery, like their ancestors and family and stuff. What about people who had families on both sides? um, there's just a lot to kind of work out. So I suggested, I'm like, hey, we can't help our legacy or our lineage, and it'd be wrong for you to have to pay like that for the crimes of your fathers and your ancestors. None of us were alive back then. So let's go by our chosen association. So there was one major political party that was around during that time, that fought, for slavery, or to keep it, or was really tied to that, because we know there's 2 major parties, and the Republicans, they formed to end slavery, and then there's the other one, the Democrats. So if you choose to be a Democrat, how about you pay reparations to Black people? Not everybody Black, because there's a lot of Black people. Most Black people choose to be Democrats. So just pay the reparations to non-Democrat Black people, and we'll go from there. So that's my suggestion for the reparations. Since they want it so bad, we could just let bygones be bygones. But if you want to press the matter, that's how I think that we solve it best. If you're a Democrat, then you have to pay the non-Black Democrats, I guess, who have had ancestry over here during that time. So and we're enslaved, and it's not going to be like fiscally like impossible, because that's such a small number. There's less than 20% of us. All right, because most everyone is a Democrat. I just think, if you want, that's the most workable system I found. If anyone has a better one, you can let me know. But Don Lemon, it was kind of funny that he didn't interrupt her at all. But I guess he had nothing to say. What could he say to that? Usually they'll try to interrupt, but she just sliced him and diced him. So I appreciated that. I thought it was hysterical. And kudos for her. And that's got to be an answer that she had to answer before. A question she's had to answer before. If that was done on the fly, that's impressive. She's not the first person to say something like that, but also having the boldness to go ahead and say it on CNN. That's funny. By the way, Don Lemon they're going to move him from his primetime show into a morning show. and he's claiming it's not a downgrade. It probably is a downgrade. I'm a little surprised that they just aren't getting rid of him, but he is like their black guy. So maybe they feel like they can't. But I know Don Lemon, they tried to give him a little something on like the CNN Plus that was like alive for like a day or two. And he just can't hold the numbers. So I don't know what they're ultimately going to do with Don Lemon. Um, but I don't know. I think he's obviously a hack like some of the other hacks they got rid of. But I don't think they have another major black guy like that. So those sort of optics, which I think Discovery is trying not to be as woke, as CNN and other folks are in the past, but people pay attention to those sort of demographics and with TV for a long time. That just supersedes the recent woke movement. So I don't know. I don't know how long he'll be at CNN, but I don't think he'll be able to carry the morning show very well. And he has been able to carry the primetime slot very well. But it's interesting some of the stuff that's happening over at Discovery. But let's move on to this really crazy story about this teen who was killed. And the T-Post Millennial is reporting that this 41-year-old driver admits to intentionally killing a young Republican teenager in North Dakota due to a political dispute. And this is really, really insane. It's insane that politics just is not that deep. Like, obviously, policies and the things that we enact, they have such crazy repercussions. And like when Scalia died, you felt like the earth move with the Supreme Court. It was concerning. There's the bill or the ballot initiative that they're trying to push through in Michigan, the Prop 3, that is concerning. It could have real world ramifications. It's the most important thing that is going on this cycle, as far as I'm concerned, in my state. And it would do irreparable damage, perhaps, if it's passed. So there's some very serious things that goes on with politics. But as far as like you needing to hurt someone over Republican, Democrat, someone saying this, saying that, my oldest sister, she keeps telling people like it's not worth ruining relationships with people, politics, because a lot of these folks are friends at the end of the day. They hang out, like people who work in politics, people who are colleagues and stuff, and they go out and they drink together, they hang out together, you know. Bush, George W. hold, Michelle's hand, and she'll give him the candy and all. Those people are more tied together, and we get so angry and want to ruin relationships, block each other, block family over politics. And it's crazy. There was a family member who I know, who said that they didn't want to come to our church because we had a Republican pastor or something like that. And I'm just like, they didn't even know that much about politics to justify that sort of like animosity. I think obviously was other reasons why they just didn't want to, but to say something like that was just so bizarre that people will take things so personal. So this is, of course, next level insane, which there are a lot of people who will jump into politics who are not quite there because, I don't know, through politics, maybe they feel like that's how they can matter, how they can have an impact. Jordan Peterson, when he talks to people, and he's been able to bring people far from like the far right edge or something, and give them perspective to like normalize them, because people focus on these really big issues, and he's just like, think about what you can control in your own circle and go from there. That's why he tells people like start with clean your room. Like, get things in order in that sort of way. Worry about the things that you can put your hands on and you can do something, and as opposed to, like, are we gonna die in 20 years because of climate change? And we're not. We're not. We're just not. But what can you do today to give yourself perspective and build your life? And he's been able to help a lot of people. But there's a lot of people who haven't been reached, aren't helped, and they do crazy stuff. And it's unfortunate. I think most normal people don't want to be wrapped up in politics that much. I've said this maybe last week. There's people who get involved who are kind of pushed too far. Like, I think most people want to just live their life, take care of their families, watch a TV show, here and there, and then they don't like when stuff gets too political, and they just want to live their life. And when it gets disrupted, they might get involved. Like, I had a cousin who didn't want to really get involved in school board stuff, and my sister was telling her, like, you should get involved, blah blah blah, and she just wants to take care of his family and do X, Y, and Z. But I can't remember exactly what it was, but something like pushed her, and she's like, you know what, we're gonna get involved. And then she started volunteering for the Trump campaign, to knock doors and other stuff like that, because people came basically in her sphere, in her bubble, when she just wanted to live her life. And then she's like, well, we got to do something. We got to get involved. And I think that's kind of where most people are. Like, they'd rather not need this to do this. I like, if I could just like feel that I could just write my fiction books and the world would be dandy, and there wasn't a need for me to do what I do, I would just be writing about mermaids and vampires and other kind of stuff just all day. Now I still do that stuff, but like, this kind of stuff takes precedent, to be honest. I think most people would just rather do what Jordan Peterson, put your life in order on the things that you can control, and not think about politics so much. But there's some people who need that sort of virtue in their lives. They don't have it in other places, and they like that quick fix. They like I'm going to put BLM in my bio, even though everyone at this point should know BLM is a trash organization, right? But it still makes them feel good. It makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel good about themselves. There's one video that I saw, and this guy was talking about student loans, and he was ripping on Republicans and just people in general who are like upset that they've paid off their student loans and now they'll have to pay off yours. And then he talks about how he used to be a Republican, and he's like, well, when I used to be a Republican, I was a mean person, and when I saw people getting help from like the VA and stuff, and if things weren't going right for me, I would get really resentful and blah blah blah. And he's like, I wasn't a very good person. And so I was thinking about doing a reply video and saying, I think it's possible that you're just still not a very good person. Like, maybe things have turned around for you and you're not like bitter anymore, but you're still coming at people, and when they're basically being taken advantage of, because that's what's happening. You like, you paid for your stuff, and now the government's like, that's too bad, we're going to redistribute your money and give it to other people. That's not fair. Like, if you want to give your money, that's one thing, but the government to come and basically confiscate your stuff, redistribute the money, that's not fair. And for people to be upset or mocking people who are upset about that doesn't make you a good person. If you say, hey, you just suck it up and take it, that doesn't make you a good person. But they found a way to internalize their virtue. It makes them feel good to see, I don't know, these people getting, shoved, being taken advantage of in one regard, while they don't have to do anything. And they're like, well, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with them redistributing money, so that makes me good and that makes you bad. No. It's not moral for the government to confiscate your money and redistribute it. It's not charity. Confiscation is not charity. You go reaching in your pocket, you giving other people, that's a good thing. you standing back while the government forces people to comply, that's not being a good person. And it's amazing how many people think that is virtue. They don't have to do anything. They're probably the ones getting money back in their pocket. And they think they're good people. It's like, no, you can pay for off anybody's student loans anytime you want to. You can pay for their bills. You can pay for their health care. You don't need the government to get involved. But they think they're good people if the government just holds up the gun to everybody and says, comply or else. So a lot of people really need that virtue signaling, the easy way out from the government. When people put in BLM during 2020, and I people must have hated me during 2020, because every time I saw that, I was on someone's page trashing BLM, and I was right the whole time. But I know I annoyed people in 2020 because I was very adversarial about it. And they'd be like, well, what should I do then? Because I want to help. And I'm like, I don't have an easy snap your fingers answer for you. Like, if you want some kind of hashtag, or you just want to donate $1 or something like that, that's not going to solve all the problems and stuff. If you really want to, and I tell people, if you really want to do something about police brutality, then you have to, like I said, the best bet you can do is go to like a libertarian leaning Republican sort of event or something, and then talk to those people, because they know their rights. And they're still a part of like the major party, and they can try to get something done. It's possible for them to get something done, and they can give you the resources to help and teach you some stuff. Like those are the first people I really heard talk about like police brutality stuff. It was like libertarian minded Republicans, not these jokers for BLM stuff that just want to tear everything down. I'm like, if that's what you really want to do, is get involved and getting some stuff into action. Like a hashtag isn't going to provoke change. And donating money didn't do anything but give BLM folks money for BLM folks, the people in charge, their families, their friends. And then they poured some money into like LGBT stuff. But we're in a worse situation now with our crime and reform than we were back in 2020. They haven't made the world a better place. So I said all that to say is that people just have some really messed up priorities as far as politics, and they internalize it so badly, and then the wrong people just end up exploding. So again, we've seen this in situations like this. Early Sunday morning, 41-year-old Shannon Brandt allegedly ran over an 18-year-old Kyler Ellingson with his car following a political dispute in McHenry, North Dakota. After being charged on Monday with a vehicular, I'm not saying that quite right, but you know what I'm trying to say, homicide, and leaving the scene of a deadly accident. Brandt admitted that his actions were politically motivated. According to the Inform, Ellingson had been participating in a street dance Saturday night, and when it wrapped up, he noticed that Brandt was following him. Ellingson called his mother to ask for help, but it was too late. Moments later, Brandt slammed into him with his car in an alleyway, killing the teen. Brandt later called the police himself to report the incident. As Inform reports, he claimed that Ellingson had been part of a Republican extremist group and had ordered others to come after him following a political argument. According to the police, Brandt was drunk at the time. However, aside from that, very little is known about what transpired. We do not know any witnesses. North Dakota Highway Patrol Captain Brian Newen said, "We are still making attempts to interview potential witnesses from the street dance, people that were present during the crash happening." Brandt, who Ellingson's mother knew, was ordered to be held on $50,000 bail. However, he declined, citing his job, family, and house as reasons why he should not be considered a flight risk. As it stands, Brandt could face a minimum of 10 years in prison with a maximum of 20. However, if more serious charges are laid against him, his sentence could be much longer. Following the incident, a GoFundMe was set up for the family by a family friend of the Ellingsons to help pay for funeral expenses. At the time of writing it, it has raised nearly $4,000. Kyler has went to heaven and will be missed by his mom, dad, brother, uncles, aunts, cousins, and family and friends. So if he killed him for political reasons, wouldn't that be an act of terror? So I know they're gonna charge him with more, but that's really crazy. I don't know exactly what specifically got him so angry. Um I don't know what sort of extremist group they thought this kid belonged to, or it's just him being a Republican or whatnot. But we have had some really intense rhetoric as of late, particularly from President Joe Biden. I would like to think and hope that Joe Biden is such a clown that people don't listen to him like that. Um, but I don't know. There's clowns out there. There's clowns out there. I just don't. Part of me would think he's just not that influential that he can move the needle like that. But I mean, I guess other people have said they've been saying stuff like that for a while. Um, I mean, we've seen like the montages and stuff that Trump's team put together during the impeachment trial, the second one, and there's been some really heated rhetoric on the left. But people, you got to the whole half the country are evil, half the country are terrorists, half the country is ruining democracy, a threat to democracy is insane. And if we're going to talk about threat to democracy, if you were a threat to democracy, we're planning on overthrowing the government. First of all, I definitely wouldn't have done it the way that January 6th happened. Um, People keep calling it like a overthrow of democracy. I'm like, all these people, a lot of these people own guns at home and they didn't come like armed to the teeth. If you really think that they were trying to do a real insurrection, it just doesn't make any sense. But you see things, some of the things that Democrats are doing, what they want to get rid of the filibuster so they're talking about packing the courts. That's something that Joe Biden didn't want to mention what side he was on about it, but he's indicated that he'd be willing to do that. Schumer said if they got majority or whatever, when anything's on the table, that's what he said. And so they could pack the courts just because they don't like that Trump, who was legitimately elected, which they pretended that he wasn't. They pretended that he was a Russian installed man and that the Russians helped him win the election, and a lot of Hillary Clinton lawyers and folks lies that they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. They undermined the legitimate president to try to make him illegitimate. They kept talking about the conservative justices that he put on the court. That was his prerogative. He was a president, he had the power to do so. They were confirmed by the Senate, etc. Everyone's on the court legitimately. All of them are there legitimately, even the ones you don't like. And then they'll keep reminding you that Trump, he wasn't even elected by the popular vote. That's not how it works. And the Senate, who confirms them, they're by each state, so the popular vote doesn't even matter in that case. But they do whatever they can to delegitimize whatever they don't like, and if they kill the filibuster, they will change a lot of the election rules that they tried to do before, but they didn't have the numbers. So we're talking about killing norms and destroying norms. There's ways that people are obviously trying to do it on the left, but there's that Saul Alinsky tactic that you accuse the people of what you're trying to do, and I'm not saying they're trying to change vote totals or anything like that, but they want to make it so that it will not matter who wins next time, that they'll basically have a system in place that Democrats will maintain power one way or another. So it's pretty nasty. It's pretty nasty, but they keep talking about the threats to democracy and etc. and pointing the finger at the Republicans because they don't want people to look at the threats of the present right now with inflation. It doesn't matter if you're red or you're blue, what team you play for, everybody's paying the same for gas. And if you're paying something different, let me know, and I want to pay that too. But Everybody's paying the same thing for gas. Everybody goes to the grocery store and the prices are too high. I mean, I guess that's kind of relative, but it's higher than it was. Obviously, there's inflation. Maybe it hits others harder than some, but it's still pretty bad for people. Still pretty bad for people. They just don't want everyone to just be like, you know what? They're not doing a good job. And everybody knows Biden's not doing a good job. He has like 38% approval rating, something super low. So people know that he's not doing a good job. But they just want to really point the finger at the other guy and have us be angry at each other, as opposed to coming together to try to solve the problem or have some kind of checks and balances. Usually when there's a president and he has like a lot of control, that something will flip. And normally something will flip because I think people instinctively know. I mean, there's always kind of like a backlash anyway, just, I don't know, tends to be. But I think people instinctively don't like someone having all the power. So there needs to be some kind of checks and balances. And Democrats do not need to have a Senate majority and a House majority. They don't need to have the president either, but what can we do about that until 2024? So my heart breaks for this family. I mean, he's such a young kid. And that's what really strikes me about this story that's so insane, is that a 41-year-old man mowed down this kid. That it's just crazy. Someone who's just basically starting their life. And trying to call his mom about being followed and then can't get away. Mowed down with a car. And you know what? During 2020, there was remember that Antifa guy who killed a Trump supporter, just like shot him? And he was like on the go, and then wasn't it Vice who like did an interview with him while he was like wanted by the cops? It was just a really weird time. A really weird time. How the press acted, media acted, just Americans in general, that we could be so violent to one another, so uncaring, so unfeeling. Over, again, politics. My sister in 2016, she had a friend who worked for the Hillary Clinton's team out in Ohio. And so my sister would do canvassing and stuff in Detroit areas. And she would do, I don't know what area she would do it, but she was in a lot of Ohio's Trump country. And so, my sister would get like some hostile people because she's a Republican. And on the opposite side, like her friend, who's not a crazy person, she just votes Democrat. They don't agree on everything, obviously, but she's not a crazy person. But she got to get hostility from Trump supporters and stuff too, so they could relate to each other's plights just from an opposite end. And they talked and they're cool, and they came up, she came up from Ohio and visited, and she was a cool lady. We just didn't agree on stuff. And that's fine. When I went to the Democrat Party picnic, there was lots of stuff that I disagreed with them about. There was some stuff that they said, like, in their mindsets that were just really disturbing. But the disturbing thing was that they kept saying stuff like Republicans don't have empathy and they don't care about anyone else. I'm just like, they can't imagine them caring about their families or friends or love. Like, that was just bizarre to me, and obviously not true. And it was obviously not true because they were talking to me. They didn't know I was a Democrat, and we were having good conversations with each other. We were enjoying each other's company, and it is possible to get along and not agree on things. That is totally 100% possible, but we don't want to live in that world. But if we can't find a way to live together, we're going downhill very fast, and we won't have a nation for very long. We were talking about like Bible prophecy and other kinds of stuff like that, and I was someone mentioned like um which people have been saying end times for forever. um and concerned about the world ending, blah blah blah. I don't even like get too wrapped up in even thinking about that kind of stuff because who the heck knows. But someone said something about the United States. I'm like, we ain't got I'm like, we're not gonna be around for X amount of, years like that. I think they said like if it didn't happen, something didn't happen for like another 100 or 2 years. I'm like, I don't think we got that. Not if we can't get it together. Not if we can't get it together. The sort of anger that we have, the hostility that we have to achieve political ends is insane. I think it's fine that people debate, that we disagree. I think that's fine. I think that's natural. It'd be kind of creepy and weird if we all agreed on the same things. It's just like it's not natural. There's people who live in the same house, who have the same morals, the same values, and still disagree on stuff. Or they agree, but it's not quite agree. Or they might just have gone through the same things, come to a different conclusion. They remember things a different way. They process information a different way. People disagree. It's fine that we disagree. It's not good that we can't have conversations without assuming the other person is evil. That we can't survive like that. So to the point where we have people willing to take up arms against each other to get in their cars and mow people down, a president who said he was going to unify and then say like the country is extreme, half the country is extreme, and then lying me like, oh no, I was talking about everybody, and then like somebody, whoever has his Twitter, is like, nah, I was talking about you. Just the flip-flopping. And it doesn't matter because you have a big speech and you say all this stuff, and then you're asked about it the next day and walk it back. And not as many people is going to see your little walk back question compared to what you when you got up and said your speech. And they know that. Or when people tweet out stuff that's pretty radical, and then they might get rid of it and then apologize or something, or they'll reframe it or something like that, or try to add a little context. Nobody sees it as much as they saw your big viral tweet in the first place, and they know how that works. They know how it works. People have to tone this down. And in some regards, it's hard to do that when so many things are so dire. Like some of the stuff that we talk about is like on the show is incredibly dark, and it's unfortunate a lot of stuff is true. There's people in charge, especially in my state right now, who very radical, and I do think it is dire that they are defeated. Um, but to do like physical sort of violence and stuff, that's crazy. That is crazy. The fact that this 41-year-old man decided to hurt this kid, that's crazy. And maybe he'll plead insanity. I don't know. I don't know. But Biden was not the man, and never was the man who was going to lead America to a more unifying place. And I don't think there's a I don't know who can, because I don't think the media will let it be a Republican. Trump had some like offensive things that he said and did, for sure. But I was at their inauguration when he gave a speech, and it was a very nice speech. Go read the transcript. He said some very nice things in there. But if when I got back to my hotel and put it on CNN, and mind you, people did like riot that day. There was like someone set a limousine on fire. They like were busting out windows and stuff. I left early enough that I missed that stuff, but my family was worried. um When I got back to my hotel, CNN is like, it was so dark and divisive. It really wasn't. It really wasn't. But the Rushmore speech that Trump gave, it really wasn't super dark. Biden's speech was dark, divisive, and the optics with the red lights and behind him the blood red lights, those visuals were pretty bad. That was dark and divisive. The stuff that Trump said, he said some very inspiring, uplifting sort of stuff that people should have been able to be optimistic and unify over, but the media didn't want that to happen. The media didn't want that to happen. Democrats didn't want that to happen. So if they don't get their way, all they want is division, it seems like. When September 11th anniversary happened, I mentioned that I think the last time I think Americans really felt unified over something was probably Ground Zero, George Bush, and holding his megaphone. I think that was probably really the last time. And I think Trump maybe tried in sometimes. I don't really think he was that guy, but I think there were times that he did try. But the media wouldn't let him. And now people are already preparing for Ron DeSantis, saying stuff like he's meaner than Trump. And they said he lacked Trump's softer edges or something. And I'm like, since when do you guys think Trump had soft edges? So the whole narrative of worse than Trump is already popping up, which people have pointed out. They'll just say the next person is worse than the last. So it doesn't really matter what president we have. If they're not a D, they're going to be painted as a divisive person. And hopefully, maybe the answer is people really tuning out a lot of this news and turning toward alternative media and people trying to make economic decisions. Because at CNN, for example, just the merger with Discovery, they got rid of some really crazy people and divisive people, and there's some people who may still be on the chopping block, and they're trying to direct them to CNN becoming a more credible news station again. If you thought that before, but they're trying to get it back to some semblance of a news organization rather than a propaganda outlet. So maybe we can have Market Solutions try to do some kind of course correct thing. But I really think a big overhaul is anywhere near our future. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't feel like it. Really doesn't. Okay, last thing I want to show you guys before I go is a snippet of Joe Biden. He was asked about the border and why it's so worse under him, which we know the answers, but he had a really interesting answer here.
On the border, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch, Mr. President?
Because there are 3 countries that are never have. There are fewer immigrants coming from Central America and from Mexico. This is a totally different circumstance. What's on my watch now is Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. And the ability to send them back to those states is not rational.
Okay, so when you announce that people who come in, illegally, right? And you could say, well, if they're refugees or something, then they're applying for refugee status and that's legal. I don't there are particular ports of entry they're supposed to enter through. And also, I think they just have to get to the closest state or closest country that's not hostile. And a lot of these people are economic refugees, but they're not going to send anybody back regardless. So it doesn't matter if you're coming and you have legitimate refugee status. They don't plan to send you back. So why wouldn't you come knowing that they don't plan to send you back? And it's just, they got people coming in from all over, and it's pretty bad. pretty darn bad under the Biden administration, the border situation. Um, but this stuff like this only makes it worse. And so, is that something that he said? Because he could have just walked away and not answer the question, but he came back to answer the question, curiously enough. And he said something that was so damaging. And I wonder why. Now, that could just be a sheer indignant maybe he's trying to shift the narrative there. Maybe sometimes Joe gets angry and he's like indignant with what he says and he pushes back. Perhaps it's a part of it, but it was so dumb as far as the repercussions that will happen if they really didn't want an influx at the border. You wouldn't say stuff like that, because he really did signal, if you come, we're not going to make you go, that we would be bad if we sent you back, that it wouldn't make sense if we sent you back. So that's what he's announcing. That's what he's saying. And just because he mentioned like 3 countries doesn't mean that other people aren't going to hear that and test their luck. But definitely, like, if you're from Nicaragua or Venezuela or something like that, then you'd be like, let's go, baby. That's our new home there. They don't intend to solve the border crisis. They don't intend to. They intend on pretending that they intend to just kind of put a narrative out there, like, don't listen to your lying ears and trust your lying eyes. Listen to us. Is their approach with a lot of things, for sure. But this isn't a smart thing to do, not in the least bit. But what else can we say about Biden? That's not doing wise things is his thing. Someone had said impeach a while ago. I'm not sure what that was about, what comment that was about, but you know, he's there's just a lot of dereliction of duties here, man, with this guy. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And it's never gotten in control. They had so many people who were flooding in, coming from the border, that they were having them in underpasses. They were stuffing them in every kind of facility that they could. There was talk about them sending them to Guantanamo Bay and other stuff like that. And they had to just start releasing them deeper into the interior, so there weren't so many eyes everywhere. So people talking about DeSantis and Abbott for sending them to places. Joe Biden was doing that in the middle of the night, dumping people on from planes and stuff too. So don't expect to get any better. But this is something that Trump noticed in 2015, 2016 to really harp on and talk about, because he saw how important it was to people, and he knew it was an important issue. And he knew there were other Republicans who were very soft on the issue because they, I don't know, want the cheap labor or something like that. Some of them are really open to the amnesty stuff. So Trump was like, you know what, I'm gonna be as tough as I possibly can on this issue to set myself apart. And he really, really, took the hearts and minds of a lot of people. And on top of that, on top of all the free media, on top of being a celebrity, on top of having a lot of money himself, and going to other places and making deals with folks, history is history. We know he won the presidency, and a lot of it had to do with him talking about the immigration issue. This is going to continue to be a big issue for people. Democrats are probably, when abortion started like dominating the news cycles, Democrats are probably really happy about that. But you know what? Immigration is still bad. Gas is still high. Food prices are still high. And there's some really creepy stuff coming out about schools every day. We talked about that on Friday in Michigan. How our Department of Education had these different teaching stuff, and they were showing TikToks of girls who were so happy to get their chest binders, things that would scrunch in their body because they have body dysmorphia with their gender dysphoria. And that's the kind of stuff that they're promoting, answering questions like, well, what happens if a child commits suicide and we're trying to escape liability? Like, those are the sort of things they're addressing, and then they double down on it. That's the kind of crazy world we're living in right now. So I hope that means that they're going to get just trounced in the midterm. And I've seen some good polls that are creeping up with Republican leads. But I really, really, really want to win in my state, obviously. But we shall see. I think we're further behind than some other prospects, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys for watching today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different videos I have, different articles that I have. Make sure that you guys are liking, that you're sharing. All my handles are at blacktnews, at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. The only one that's different is Twitter. That one's at True Black Tea, and it's black like color, tea like the drink. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation to blacktnews.com/donate. Their cost, for my overhead, for the software that I use, the streaming, travel, all that stuff requires cost. I'm sure you guys know we don't live in a just free society, just because some socialist people like to say that. Obviously, that's not our reality. And if you can support, I appreciate it. If you can't or don't want to, I thank you guys for watching. I thank you guys for sharing, for liking, for tagging other people. It all really does help, and I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out the store. Stuff like the You Are Not That Special. Got those in cute little mugs too. Pro-choice men are sus. Got that t-shirt. If you're like, what do you mean by sus? I mean, like, suspect. And you're like, I still don't get it. Well, example, when the whole Roe v. Wade got struck down, there's a lot of protests going on. And so there's some pictures popping up of families saying like, hey, we'll adopt your baby. And Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker, and he does the voice of the Joker, and has for a very long time. Actually, I don't know if he's done anything recent, but he's been the Joker for a very long time. Very iconic Joker voice. And so he just retweeted, or no, he didn't retweet, but he wrote, "We'll adopt your baby," and he had a picture of Joker and Harley. And people were like, why make something like this? I think people are poking fun at him because they're like, okay, well, he's a Joker, and Batman is his parents were murdered, and so he's been looked after by Alfred. Of course, he still like runs the state, but Alfred is taking care of him, and so he's criticizing people for adopting, and he voices a evil clown whose main person that he fights is an orphan who takes in other people. Because the first Robin, he became his legal ward, and the third Robin, he actually adopted him. And so people point out that kind of stuff, and people also pointed out, like I point out, like you were played the most famous adoptee like in the galaxy, because his uncle and his aunt like adopted him and took care of him because his dad was all evil and stuff, Darth Vader. So interesting thing about Mark Hamill is that in 2016 his son knocked up a porn star, a former porn star, and they wanted her to have an abortion and pressured her to have an abortion. And she actually did take abortion pills, but they didn't work. And after abortion pills didn't work, his son Nathan was all like, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore if you don't do something about this. And I think the mom was supposed to arrange some kind of sonogram, and it was like an abortion or something like that. And she ended up keeping her baby, and her baby's name is Autumn. But yeah, they're pro-choice men are sus. And I think a lot of them have more nefarious reasons for supporting it. I'm not saying all of them do, but that's just an example if you're curious about what this shirt is about. So that's why I made it. I got all kinds of other stuff you guys can check out at the store, but I just wanted to talk about that because I definitely did mention that today when I was working on my book, tweaking my book. So God bless you guys, and I'm going to see you tomorrow.